Good afternoon, CSS Nation. Pernell, husband, and myself are live today. Good afternoon, Pernell. How are you?
I'm doing very well, Harry. How you doing?
I'm doing okay. I'm doing excellent as always.
Excellent. Not outstanding, but excellent, right?
Yes. So we're looking to do, we decided to do a live broadcast for you all today. And just want to let you know that you can go to our YouTube station at Central Sterilization Solutions. Be sure to smash the like button if you like our show, and please subscribe. We are also broadcasting on Central Sterilization's Solutions page on Facebook, as well as in CSS Nation. Speaking of CSS Nation, Pernell, I'm going to stand up real quick. Tell me, what do you think about my new shirt?
I think best T-shirt ever. Very nice.
All right, called
Love
merchandise.
The colors, man. Love the colors.
Merch. Gotta, it's so when I start going out in public and everything, I'm going to start wearing my CSS Nation. So people are like, what is that? So we can broadcast and stuff. So anyway, so I know that it's kind of hit and miss as far as how many people are actually watching us at any given time. It did say one. Now we've got 3 people live with us. So what we're going to be talking about today is salaries for sterile processing. All right. What are the current rates? Why we feel that you're not getting enough? And we want to invite you all to go ahead and do through the different platforms, whether you're watching us on YouTube or through Facebook, to be able to comment. I know that when you do so, when you're watching us, it says on let's say on Facebook, saying, we're using StreamYard, so please grant StreamYard permission to see your name. So that way, when you post something in our chat box, we can then see who you are and potentially where you're coming from. And also, we want to hear your thoughts on the salaries. We also, and if you have something really good to say, we just might send you the link to this show so you can join us live, so long as you have a computer with a camera.
You gotta bring it, though. You have to bring it.
Yeah. So, because this is live. There's no editing in the middle of a live broadcast, So that's not like our past shows.
Exactly. Again, speaking about salaries and pay, most people get up every day, they go out to their jobs, and they do their jobs to the best of their ability, and that's how they support their families. That's how we support our families. Pay is critically important. Forget about all that, other stuff. People want to be fairly compensated for the work that they do. Sterile processing technicians are essential workers. They are critical to what happens in hospitals and in any institutions where surgeries are done. They are responsible for a lot of information, for knowing a lot of information. Anatomy, microbiology. They need to know about steam. They need to know how to operate any number of pieces of equipment. And that is a lot to take on. And we believe that they are underpaid. We are strong advocates for fair pay for central service professionals. And that's what we want to talk with you guys about.
Yeah. By the way, I'm just looking at the comments. Somebody said that they're listening from KSA. And if you could tell us exactly where KSA is. I'm assuming that's overseas. Could be Kansas. I don't know.
Is Kansas overseas now?
Possibly, you never know. In this wacky world
They
of
move.
ours, no, I
Right.
just don't know where KSA is.
Mhm.
And we have Ingrid watching from Washington D.C. Hello, Ingrid, and
Welcome
hello,
in, Ingrid.
Facebook user watching from KSA.
Yeah. So what's your general approach, H, when it comes to talking about this subject, and that's compensation for central service professionals?
Well, I'm in agreement. First of all, because I listen to a lot of people talking out there about the whatchamacallit, what they're getting paid, and the fact that they feel that they're undervalued, that they're not getting paid enough, and I absolutely agree with that, because sterile processing technicians, I mean, our primary job is to provide patient safety in the products that we're providing. And, a lot of the facilities, they don't know us until something goes wrong. And then all of a sudden they're doing an investigation about, what's going on. And they start doing root cause analysis. And lo and behold, then they hear about sterile processing. But the good thing is, Pernell, I know that in my travels going out to different hospitals in consulting and doing training, I see that more and more senior leadership are they're paying attention to sterile processing as far as giving us the tools that we need to do our job. So that's becoming more prevalent. But the one common theme is that they're not being paid appropriately, in my opinion. I know that in one state, I remember seeing a post on Facebook where I believe it was a sterile processing technician talking about going to go work for McDonald's because the starting salary was $18 an hour and they were getting like $16 an hour. So it's like, well, why wouldn't I just go to McDonald's and make more money rather
Free
than
lunch.
work really super hard? Yeah. It's like, so I don't blame them. Now, my approach is that I believe as technicians, as leaders, because all of us, even us managers, educators and stuff, down, to the core of it, we are all sterile processing technicians. That's generally how all of us started. And we need to remember our roots, where we came from, and we need to make sure that we're advocating, whether we're technicians, whether we're a lead, a supervisor, a manager, educator, doesn't matter what position we hold within the department. We need to start reaching out to our senior leadership and let them know that, first of all, what it is that we do, how important we are. Start educating them on the current salary levels. I know one, because we're from California, so I know that, the pay scale is wide. I mean, you can start off at one facility, if it's a county facility, for like between $13 and $16 an hour to start. You can go to a facility, and I will name some of the names, like Kaiser Permanente or Loma Linda University, and get paid, depending if you're, whether you're in Central California, LA area, or something like that, somewhere between $18 to $25 to start. If you're down in San Diego, they start you out between $28 and $32 an hour to start. So there is a wide discrepancy as far as where the starting pay salary goes. And so now, as technicians, I think one of the things you can do and is to go out there, and if you happen to be in a unionized facility, start reaching out to your union representation. Now, right now, if you're currently under contract, there's not much you can do, but what you can do is start pushing the idea that you need better compensation, especially for the upcoming negotiations. I think that's one avenue. And then start talking to, your manager and ask the manager, what are they doing so that sterile processing is recognized and moving up? And, and the chief nursing officer and stuff. There's times when, you have surveys that the hospitals have, the employees fill out, the employee engagement surveys. That's a time where you can also let them know that you're being undervalued and stuff. So, and before I hand it over to you, Pernell, if you want to have anything follow up to say, again, I just wanted to reach out, thank those of you. KSA, I believe that means the person's from Saudi Arabia. We have people from Massachusetts. We have people from watching from Wisconsin.
Welcome aboard.
And a couple of good comments so far. We have one Facebook user that said that they're underpaid, undervalued, and under-resourced. Absolutely. I truly believe that is a true statement. And let's see, we have another one that states that rising tides lift all boats. So actually, when some of you, when you make comments like that, remember, let us know if you're brave enough that you want to come on, and I'll send you the link and invite you in. We'll put you on the spot to talk.
Right.
And,
Harry, you mentioned those of our friends out there that may be working in union environments and what they can do as far as pay. Get involved, ask questions. I think one of the key things that you guys as a group, central service professionals, can do collectively is to make sure you've joined your professional organization, whichever one. There's a big one, and then there's another little one, right? Make sure you're active members. And you want to tell your leadership, and it's better if you do it as a group, tell your professional organization if you don't believe that they have properly prioritized pay for central service professionals. That is, if you're not hearing them talk about it every time they get up to a podium, if you don't see it discussed in your professional literature, that's probably because it hasn't been prioritized. Now, how do you get it prioritized? You advocate for yourselves. Join the organizations and tell them you want them to start advocating for better pay for central service technicians. Yeah. I guarantee you that will happen if you don't think it's happening already.
Absolutely. So let's see. Let's see what other comments that we have out there. Let's see. It says our organization does not fight for salary according according to a podcast I heard this week, they only represent the science.
Well,
and and that's a question, depending on the science that you're talking about, listener. You may be talking. Are you talking about COVID science? You're talking about what kind of science are we talking about there? Because I think that's funny, because I hear in the media, follow the science, but actually I don't see them following any science out there. So, not to get political.
And maybe, our friend could be talking about that, the organization's focus is strictly having to do with the professional aspect and technical, nature of what it is we do. Maybe that's the point. But be that as it may, it's a professional organization, and the people who are involved in it work for you, right? So when they're on podcasts, when they're giving interviews, there's nothing wrong with prioritizing, slipping something in. Hey, by the way, these professional folks that do this great work day in and day out, we believe that they're underpaid. And, we just want to put that out there, because it's not going to change with each of you at your individual hospitals complaining about how low the pay is. It's not going to work that way. It doesn't work that way. This has been going on for a very long time. There's a
Yeah.
way that you can become involved in it and make a positive change. Join your organizations and tell them you want them to advocate for better pay for central service professionals.
Absolutely. We had one Facebook user that said, nope. Isham said no, they do not focus in pay. And that is correct. But you got to understand there's two sides to Isham. You have the educational side and you have the board of directors. And it's the board of directors that we vote for to come in and represent us. And so I think we need to hold their feet to the fire and let them know that part of that representation is this needs to be part of the talk. This is the conversation that needs to take place. And again, it's not just Isham, because I understand Isham, sometimes they're not wanting to focus that in that direction because they're an international association, and I think there is something they can do here in the United States, but as far as other countries that they represent, it's hard to say what kind of voice they may have. But then again, I think if they spoke up more, it's not saying that you're demanding for pay increases and stuff, but I think they can talk about education, as far as educating employers as to what it is that we do, how important we are. And, we're coming up, we're a half a year away. I think it's sometime in October, Sterile Processing Week. So we need to, educate them, and what we could do locally. Talk to your local associations. Now, not all states have a chapter, Isham chapter board. Here in California, we do. We have a couple of them. We used to have 3 of them. Now we're back down to 2. The primary one is the California Central Service Association. And then we also have Central California Association, the newest one that just was adopted and became a chapter just a couple of years ago, very young. But, they need to be talking about it. They need to, so the local associations in the area of whatever particular state needs to be doing what they can to communicate up through the leadership as to what it is that we do. And part of that is inviting them down into our department. Let them take a tour. I've done that. When I worked at on practically every facility I've worked for as a manager, I had the chief nursing officer, I've had the COO, I've had the CEO, chief financial officer come down and do a tour, and they were amazed, and they were like, we really didn't even know you were here, So, and one, Facebook user said nurses demand fair pay, so we need to do the same thing. We need maybe go to our state legislature, start talking to our local leaders in the state, our congressmen, our state representatives, our state senators, and start demanding that we be recognized. So
I'm not going to let anybody off the hook. I think there's a tremendous opportunity here to acknowledge the disparity in pay between professional groups in the perioperative services who are, in my opinion, in fact, separate and unequal. I think there's enough room for leadership in a variety of organizations. And I'm also speaking about AORN and other professional type organizations, for them to, again, educate, like you said, take it from that angle, educate people on the tremendous work that central service professionals do day in and day out, how hard that work is, what kinds of conditions these people are working under. Again, oftentimes, not always, under-resourced, not enough education available, right? I think there's enough room for organizations to educate the public and employers about the critical nature of the work that central service professionals do and that they deserve better pay. So,
absolutely.
And I agree with everything that you've said, but there's going to be a whole lot of talking, a whole lot of this going on, and no action if there's no action.
Right.
So it's the people that are being seen, it's the people who have platforms that need to stand up and state where they come down on this. We have.
Yeah. So I just want to put it out there. I don't know if she's currently listening, but I did send her a message. So we have Alessandra Nicholson that, she said, yes. She says, come on, Pernell, we're not equal. Speak on it. And are we ready to talk about why SPD is the redheaded stepchild? Oh, I like that one. There's so many times I have felt like the redheaded stepchild. That's why I shaved my head so you don't see my red hair. So I invited her to go ahead and come on the show live if she'd like.
Awesome.
No pressure. No pressure.
Awesome. So, I think she raised some very fair points. I mean, if you've been around long enough, that has been an issue. And, there's been a lot of time and effort put into making sure that people in the operating room and in sterile processing are communicating more effectively. There's been a lot of work done in that regard. Harry, we've been part of some of that work. Yeah. So we're not saying that things aren't happening, but they should happen much faster. We're in the 21st century, and we need to close the door on just a lot of bad stuff and jump into this, bold new world. Yeah.
Yeah. Hey, so she took us up on our invite. So here I'm going to go ahead and add her to the stream. Alessandra, how you doing? Can you hear us?
Good, guys. How are you?
Doing great. I've seen you on the process. I've seen you talk several times on the process. And,
yes.
Pernell and I have discussed having you on the show anyway. And so the fact that you were listening, and it's like, I got you. I'm going to send you that invite.
Hey,
first of all, Alessandra, just in case anybody doesn't know, tell us a little bit about yourself and what your current role is within sterile processing.
Awesome. So for you guys that haven't seen me all over the place yet, my name is Alessandra Nicholson. I'm a sterile processing manager currently with an organization out in Massachusetts. I did the majority of my leadership career in the Bay Area with some hospitals like Kaiser, Dignity Health, UCSF, and then have transitioned, thanks to COVID, out to the Massachusetts area. And then also have gone into business for myself with the Condré Institute to do what you guys are doing, which is spreading the gospel of SPD. So that's a little about me. You might have seen me on the process or Knowledge or Nonsense recently. And I'm really excited to be here with you guys.
Well, we're
really excited to hear you. Now, you're not from Massachusetts, are you? Because I don't hear the Eastern accent.
That's because he has roots in Massachusetts. Where is he? Over there, yeah. Can you hear us okay?
So Southern Illinois is where I'm originally from. And I did all my job training on the job in a small hospital in Carbondale, Illinois, which is coincidentally where Pernell got his online degree from. Right?
That's right. Got some ties. Yeah, well, my degree was Salukis, right? Yeah. So listen, as far as central service sterile processing, we started things off by talking a little bit about pay. Now, we've always known, for as long as we've been involved in central services, that the pay for the professionals out there on the front lines, in comparison to some of their counterparts, if you can call it that, have been on the lower side. There have been some marginal improvements over the years, but this group still lags behind in pay. What do you think are some of the root causes of this particular concern?
Well, I think some of them are obvious, right? We talk about education, the fact that not a lot of people are aware of what SPD is or what SPD entails. We're seeing a lot of cognitive dissonance right now between having a basic understanding of sterile processing, which some of our senior leaders do now, some of our surveyors do now. They've gone out and they've taken the test. They have a high function.
Well, we just lost her.
Uh-oh. Hopefully we can get her back.
Yeah, I'll just send her a quick message to click the link again to join. She had her Wi-Fi. She's going to get inside her house so she can connect her to her Wi-Fi, and then we'll get back in and get her back on. So
Awesome.
Ingrid out there, she said, my question is, why is SPD always listed under perioperative services instead of being their own separate entity? And very good question. I have some thoughts on it, but Pernell, what are your thoughts on that question?
Well, I've given some thought to this particular concern, and I personally believe that as we continue to evolve and we continue to further professionalize ourselves, that is something that we could see down the road. Of course, there's a great argument for keeping central services as a part of perioperative services, because again, remember, peri-op is everything having to do around that patient, around the surgical patient. And most of what we do revolves around that surgical patient. So there's a strong argument for that. But I could definitely see somewhere in the future where, again, as we continue to evolve and grow and gain more credibility and continue to educate people and get better pay, that you could see down the road a standalone central service departments that have in them an operating room nurse who is in central services, who is maybe a liaison type situation.
Right.
And there are other professionals on the management team in central services. I think we're gonna evolve and probably head in that direction. I wouldn't bet against that sometime in the future.
Yeah, I know that 33 years ago, when I first started in sterile processing, we were actually under materials management, and that was because generally we were called central services, which not only meant did we provide surgical instrumentation to the OR, to the ER, and to labor and delivery, but we were also involved in delivering the supplies from the storeroom to the floors, because oftentimes storeroom and sterile processing were one and the same. And then they were separate, but still sterile processing was under materials management. And some really old hospitals, they still have sterile processing under materials management. And then I remember back in the 80s, early 90s, I had applied for a liaison position for the OR. And my facility was a Kaiser hospital in Anaheim that sterile processing was still under materials management. And they had asked me, what do you think one of the problems are for the the lack of unity between our departments. What could we do to improve things? And at the time, it seemed like a good idea, and I let them know that I would actually take sterile processing out from under materials management and put them underneath perioperative services. Now, the hope was by doing so, it would help the OR to recognize that we are on the same team, especially since we're reporting to the same director now. But that didn't seem to come to fruition. You know, there still seemed to be the old animosity that was being, you know, part of the culture that was still being allowed to continue. And now I see facilities they're going, and they're actually several hospitals here in California. I know that they've actually put sterile processing under their own department, have their own director that they report to. And then I've seen some that report they've placed sterile processing under infection prevention or infection control. And to me, that's not a bad idea either, to go under infection prevention, because a lot of departments, especially the operating room, have a tendency to be a little bit nervous when they're dealing with the infection control nurses and stuff. So I think it's really important, to really think about what it is, what's the purpose of where we're going to be reporting to, and make sure that we make a wise decision there. By the way, Selva, Amada just said hello. So hello. Thank you for watching us. She's coming to us through YouTube. She's watching our YouTube channel. By the way, let me go ahead and shamelessly plug that, Pernell, that Central Sterilization Solutions channel on YouTube. Again, be sure to push the like button, smash that like button.
Is that what the kids are saying? Smash the like button?
Yeah, smash it, and then go ahead and become, subscribe and hit the notification bell, so that way you know when we post new content. Typically this is unusual that we went live today, and I got to admit, Pernell, I think we're doing a pretty good job.
Well, here we are.
Going live, we typically like to pre-record so we can edit.
But every once in a while, we got to touch the folks. And Harry, there have been a number of hospitals that have gone the director route and, sort of an independent department. Not the majority yet, for sure. I think a lot of places have tried it out. I've even known places that have gone that route and then have scaled back to a manager type situation. But I think ultimately, for a variety of reasons, a standalone central services or sterile processing department manned by a director is probably going to be the norm, as we continue to evolve. It just has to be, I think.
Right.
That's a part of the education, us gaining the type of credibility that we should have already had. The issue has been that lack of education and people having a full appreciation for what it is central services is all about and what it entails. So
yeah,
I think
welcome back,
as we oh yeah, there you are.
Thank you, guys.
We can hear you loud and clear.
So, Alessandra, just to let you know, the question that was being we were just answering, we had Ingrid who had said, why is SPD always listed under perioperative services? And I told her about my history of originally being under materials management, then going to periop. And in some facilities, it's not widely done yet, but some facilities are now finally having sterile processing have their own director and be their own department and stuff. So what are you experiencing?
Absolutely.
So when it comes to sterile processing, where do you report up to?
I started in a department that was materials and SPD together. I currently report to an assistant chief nurse, and that is underneath that perioperative umbrella.
Which is, yeah, we got a little bit of a delay, so no worries.
It's
We got
probably,
a little bit of delay.
yeah, there's a little lag, but it's common
No
to see
worries.
it under perioperative services now that there's been this, like we said, high level understanding that it's not materials management and it's very closely related to surgery. So the logic was to swing it underneath perioperative services. But Ingrid is 100% accurate. It should be its own entity. And a lot more departments should have to report into sterile processing than sterile processing really report out. Because what you see is that you have offsite clinics that are missing practices. You have materials management that's purchasing items without consideration to the equipment on hand or to, the facilities equipment or IS equipment. So there's just a big, huge disconnect. We say that SPD is the heart of the hospital, but it's really the brain. And it doesn't get treated as that central nervous system that it truly is.
Oh, I like that. I like that concept. I think it's probably both. It's the brain and the heart,
All right, look, okay. It's clearly the liver because of what we do. Now think about it.
We
got the
filter a
whole
lot.
guy.
Because how much we detoxify that place.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah, cleaning out the what's that term? Starts with the C, ends with a P, and it's and if you were like Tupac, you'd be rapping it, or something like that. So
He threw out the Tupac reference. Yes, I'm loving it.
well, and
So-
yes, I do know that he's not alive. All right, so I'm not one of those people that believes he's still alive.
Like
Actually, I
Elvis,
meant
right?
Tupac. I was trying to go with somebody who's alive.
Or so they say. No joking.
Right?
Yeah,
No.
but I do think that we understand the education piece is missing. But I think what a lot of our partners and allies misunderstand is why is there that disparity. And I know it's painful and it's difficult to digest when I say it, but if we don't start naming it, we really cannot tackle it. And it really truly is this, like he said, separate but equal institution that has come in. And where have we seen that before? We've seen that during civil rights, where we try to segregate out what is white and what is right, what is ARN, what is nursing, what is surgery, what is anesthesia. And then we block down what is service, what is Black, what is brown, what is industry, what is technician level work. And what ends up happening is you get this dissonance because you don't understand the science, because now you've trained yourself out of believing that there's a science to environmental services or sterile processing services or nutrition services. We know it to be a fact, but inside the industry, we social ourselves out of respecting those as sciences because they're typically considered service industry, brown, Black work. So you see it with employment data. I mean, I don't have to make this stuff up. Most of your departments are going to be Black and brown people, are going to be intergenerational folks, are going to be immigrants. And you don't see that as much on the perioperative side unless it's highly educated.
Yeah.
Yeah, those are definitely, and given, our world in the past couple of years, we've definitely seen more conversations happening that really take an accurate look at what's really happening. And I think, how would you
root causes? We love that word.
Right. Getting back to that question, and you painted a pretty accurate picture so far. Now, as far as advocating for central service professionals as a group and their pay, how do you think we best accomplish that? Because it's not going to happen on its own. It's in nobody's interest, or they would have already acted, right? It is in nobody's interest It's not going to affect their bottom line in a positive way to do this. So nobody's just going to look over and go, yeah, they do work hard.
It would, but they misunderstand how it would.
Yeah.
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 I would disagree in
how would you approach
in the
that?
realistic sense that it would positively impact their bottom line.
Well, my point is,
how
they don't see that. They haven't made that
No, they
connection.
don't see that. Correct. They do not understand that. They have not made that connection. And we know that every time we are able to give them correct information, these groups generally do act in the best interest of the facility, which is typically going to be the same thing as the best interest of sterile processing. So like Harry was saying, if we explain, the workload and what they're doing, you can sometimes get senior leaders to come along with increasing pay. Are you going to get the dramatic close of a gap you're looking for? Absolutely not. But you can make a marginal increase. We can go to infection control and partner with them and give them a high level information about what we do. But that will push to give us some more support. But are you going to get the radical support that you need, which is machines consistently working, staff matrix that's correct, IUSS low? No, you're not going to get all those things. You're not going to get that radical change when you're not looking at the true root cause. So I'm not seeing yet where there's like restorative justice conversations about sterile processing or nutrition or EVS, but I feel like that's the missing link. We have plenty of consultants, but nobody's having that conversation about how race impacts the system.
Well, and again, that's why, we have guests and why, we have you on. So Harry, did you have anything to add before we let Alessandra go ahead and expand on that particular theme?
No, I would like her to just. Well, I had one question, and I know she, I wanted her to expand a little bit on the, her perspective of how it is that we are treated like the redheaded stepchild that I know that we are treated like. Now allow the connection
frozen,
to catch up.
Yeah, it's frozen a little bit. Well, why would you? There we go. Did you hear that last question? I don't think she's connected. Can you hear us?
I hope I'm hearing this full.
Can
Okay,
you hear
we
us?
can start. We're starting to hear you now.
No, it's like really patchy. So I did hear wanting to expand and about why we're the redheaded stepchild, but I missed after that.
That was it. Just
pretty
just
much
expand a little bit on that, and then Pernell had a follow-up question on what he would like you to talk about.
So I think it's one where we would have to go really into the true historical conversation of American history, and then also having a conversation about what African enslaved people's history was in America and what indigenous people have gone through, and it's probably something that we would need a big long hour to talk about. But essentially, we know some high-level themes, right? We know that enslaved Africans were brought over to America for the purpose of working for production. And we know that indigenous people were trapped into that system as well. And we know that we see a separation of Black communities, indigenous communities from white communities through like housing markets, through civil rights. And we're still fighting for those communities to be interconnected today. So we've seen, where systems just kind of generally will disregard the humanity, which will include the education, the genius, the talent that those indigenous folks are bringing to that group. And so we saw it, in slavery, where you had kind of the mammification of Black and brown people, where you were there purely to make sure that someone else had all of their needs taken care of. You weren't there to be a subject matter expert unless you were whispering in the corner, but you could never stand out loud in the front and say, I know what I'm talking about, and I want to lead you in this conversation. So it's just purely been bred into our system. Like I said earlier, that industry work is considered nominal, not important, needs to be underpaid, undervalued, is something that you should pull yourself out of, rather than us taking what we know is a community approach to raising up people, which is resourcing them, making sure that they're well fed, making sure that they're well educated, making sure they get outside, everything that the pandemic showed us that we needed to be a healthy community, right? We know what it takes. SPD departments, where are they at? In the basement. No sunlight, no contact with the outside world. You get your 15-minute break. You can barely make it to the cafeteria and get back in time. You're high stress. You're under-resourced. You're panicked. You're high anxiety. That is not an environment to thrive, and we all know that. So it's like, what's going on that these other departments are having routine, longer breaks, higher wages, free food, meditation time. And why is that not trickling down into SPD?
Good point. Very good point. I like that.
I think you make some very good points, and I think
I hate
kind
this
of where I
lag.
started.
I can't hear you, Harry.
No?
How can I fix this?
Go ahead, keep talking, Pernell. That's all right.
Okay. No, I think
connection will catch up.
yeah, I think Alessandra's made some very good points, and certainly there are broader societal systemic issues that have an impact on many workplaces, particularly those in service industries. No question about that. And I think we should take Alessandra up on, dedicating some time to where we can really explore the broader societal issues that are having these kinds of systemic impacts. They are real, and I think we could have a fruitful discussion on those issues vis-a-vis, see how I threw that little French in there? Vis-a-vis sterile processing and the broader service industries as a whole, no question. Now, as far as this particular conversation, if we could narrow it just a bit, I want to focus on, are our professional organizations, these people that we elect to do whatever it is they do, is ISHM what we want it to be? Should it be in a better position to more forcefully advocate and to prioritize pay? Do they believe that the pay structure as it currently exists for sterile processing professionals, do they agree that it's okay? Is that a living wage? Is that something that people should aspire to? And if not, why not?
Why not
Educate people.
Do something about it, right?
Right.
So in talking only through podcast conversations with ISHM, and through reading the laws that they've passed that require certifications, and through reading the FAQs that they've submitted to the certified technicians about what those requirements were going to entail and what they were not, I've come to an understanding, and I hope ISHM can correct me if I'm wrong, that ISHM is not prioritizing salary in the conversations about certification requirement. If you read the law itself, and it's available online for every state, the law specifically mentions that pay is not tied to the requirement for the certification. So the hospital is allowed to do that at an individual basis. And so we see what Harry discussed. Different markets pay different rates for different reasons. A lot of that has almost nothing to do with the science. That's more about market living, right? That's about cost of living, cost of, your rent and your groceries and your gas. That really has nothing to do with the science. And then we see that those hospitals that do recognize that this is something extra that you did, some are reimbursing for the cost of the test, and then some are paying a little more. But what do we see? We see cents on the dollar. So I pay $125-ish for a book set. I pay another $125 to take the exam. Some of the schools, which is also unregulated by Isham to my full extent, some of the schools are $500. Some of the schools are $10,000. So you may come out of pocket 10, 12 grand to get a certification, and your hospital is only going to offer you 50 cents or maybe $1. I think the most that I've seen is $4 or $5 to go from no cert to a cert. And that was one facility. The most have been cents. So that's part of the issue there, is that now that those laws are in place, you would have a very difficult time coming back to that legislator to say, now that I've convinced you that that was a requirement and very important, now I need you to require those hospitals to pay more. What facility is going to join along with that, especially when our entire industry is essentially based off of recommendations and not requirements, right?
Yeah.
Right.
So unless you're going to require them, to educate or to resource or to pay, they're not going to do it. And as a leader, let's just be very honest. These are businesses. These hospitals are here to make a profit. We prioritize care because we're caregivers, but the hospital is a business and they make a lot of money off of what we do. And so when we're talking about return on investment, they are getting away with murder in the sense that they're making millions and billions of dollars and they're paying you pennies in comparison to what you're providing for them to produce that cash. Mm-hmm. So I think part of the issue why we are not going to see an Isham organization like itself and where it's currently positioned, which is very much in partnership with the industry, very much in partnership with the facilities, we're not going to be able to see them in a position that's neutral enough to demand higher pay, not ask gently and say, would you mind to pay me more? You would have to demand that, right? That's what unions do. They demand, they don't ask for more money. So they're not in a position to do that. And I don't know that it's fair at this point to ask them to be in that position. Mm-hmm. I think there needs to be a separate entity that does that. And I'd like to see it supported by Isham.
Well, so there's clearly a vacuum. Right?
And one more point, let's be clear. Isham even says itself, Isham members are not voting, right? So that 30 some odd thousand voters, we're talking about maybe a couple thousand that are voting for the board. There is a complete disconnect even within Isham and its voting members. And there's a reason for that.
I think that the way Isham is currently constituted today, and who can run and who can't run for the presidency and for the board, it wasn't always that way, right? Yeah. What did it take to make those changes?
What did it take? It took board members, right?
Well, it took some conversation, and it took some very smart people making it a priority to get it done.
Absolutely.
So, there's a lot of.
Let's be clear. Independently, facility levels, Isham level, CDC level, FDA level, DPH level, we all have enough data that we can make a case for why SPD being understaffed, underfunded, under-resourced is actually a public safety concern. I mean, the numbers for COVID don't do anything when we're talking about surgical site infection. So all of these groups do have a responsibility to take that data all the way to the end of the line.
So now we're talking the same language. And my point is action gets action, right? Yes. And so we're having this discussion that we're all very familiar with. Central service professionals are not paid appropriately. We lag way behind our counterparts. Now, the question is, for me at least, if I really believe that's the case, right? And I want to see change in this area, so what's the first thing I, as a tech working somewhere in Arizona, can do to start having an impact on that situation, right? What can we do? What's the best route? If there are a bunch of like-minded people out there who are thinking the way we think, who are central service professionals, right? What can they do?
I think what they do is for once as an industry, we turn around and we look at what did our partners do? What did the RNs do? What did the surgeons do? when you look
Organized.
back at the history of nursing, it's not rosy. They were not always uplifted and resourced and paid and educated. That was not the case.
As a matter of fact, they were doing our jobs before they took it away from them because they were overworked.
They were overwhelmed. They were pulling in way too many sciences. So what they did was they organized and they focused their science, and they said, this is what registered nursing entails. And all this other stuff, this is some CNA work, this is some physician work, and they focused and honed in on their science, and then they demanded that it get respected.
Yeah, so now we're talking the same language. Again, action begets action.
Absolutely.
And so, Harry, I'm going to throw it over to you. That looks like a nice cold beverage.
He said, let me get something on my throat. It's hot in here.
Right?
Cool off, Harry. Cool off.
Quick time for a commercial break. It's time to do the do. And because it's very refreshing.
Sponsorship, please. And thank you. We drink enough Mountain Dew.
So D says, you go, girl.
Thank you, D. And I appreciate that. I want to acknowledge that because having this conversation inside of the hospitals gets you fired. And I have had that experience. And it's a very real threat. And it's a very hush-hush conversation. And the Isham FAQ even said, don't talk about it because it can be problematic. So I do understand that I'm having a conversation on behalf of a group of technicians that is not in a position to say what I'm saying.
Listen, technology is an awesome equalizer, I believe.
Yes, it is.
And I think we are on the cusp of an explosion. I really do. Absolutely. I really do. There's a lot of platforms out there. People are talking.
Absolutely.
People want to be involved. And these times require.
People want to be safe.
Absolutely.
Really safe. Not a false safe. Truly healthy and safe.
Absolutely. So I think if I had a whiteboard up right now, the number one thing that I would say to central service professionals out there who agree that they should be getting better pay is join a professional organization. Matter of fact, I would tell them to make sure they are an Isham member. Get certified, okay, so you can have a voice. Join your local chapters.
Do that.
All right.
If you can get them on the phone. I'm still waiting a year to get a response, and I'd like Isham to help with that.
But here's what's going to happen, and it always does. Harry, you know this. Leaders will emerge.
Yes.
Because every charge has to have a leader.
A leader.
Right? But you got to be leading something or someone. So organization first.
Yeah.
Get certified, join your professional organization, right? I would say that would be number one for me.
I would disagree.
It's not going to happen tomorrow.
I would disagree. Again, I don't feel that Isham is in a position to do very much on behalf of the sterile processing tech. And I do agree with you that all of us that are currently certified and all of us that want to work in this industry within the next 3 to 5 years, you need to get your certification and you need to get loud inside this organization because you did pay for this and you pay for it every year. But we also have to acknowledge that that certification does not prepare you to work in this field, and that is a problem. We can't use Isham or CBD at this point to wave a flag of patient safety because a certified tech is the dime a dozen. You could get a certified tech that can run themselves and they are 100% on top of it and they will never compromise their integrity or their science. And then you have other techs that truly have almost no idea what they're doing because of the classes that they've taken or the training that they've received on site. So you have to be able as an organization to actually be correct, right? And have your body be correct. At this point, you don't even really have a board in the sense that if I do compromising activity as a CRCST, who's going to take my license? Who's going to review me? Who's going to peer review me? No one. Who can I call? If I have a
I
facility that's forcing me to sterilize instruments without washing them, can I call Isham and say, step in here and be a definitive voice to say, no, 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 you actually can't do that, and here's why.
You can call OSHA. Here's
No,
what I would say.
And let me tell you why you can't. We called DPH, we called CDC, and we called Joint Commission. And you know what all three entities told us? It's the individual's facilities up to them to determine when they clean. And that's where I'm sitting currently.
Yeah, that's unfortunate.
Very unfortunate, right? So
well, let me address your disagreement, and I respectfully accept it and the spirit of it. I really do. So Isham, for the most part, is the largest professional organization that central service professionals have.
Correct.
Right? It is, for all intents and purposes, the voice of, to the public at least,
correct,
to hospitals,
correct,
to different organizations. They are the voice. They are the largest certification or certifying body of central service professionals. I'm not asking them to just turn everything upside down. What I'm asking them to do is to acknowledge that there's a pay disparity.
Oh yeah, they do.
and to initially, and to when they're on these platforms and they're talking about all of these other issues that impact central service professionals, there is another issue that is very impactful as well.
Yes.
And that's their wages.
Absolutely.
And all I'm asking them to do is to acknowledge that there is a disparity.
Oh, yes.
That's it.
Oh, yes.
Acknowledge
and they
that.
have. I've seen Isham members acknowledge it. I've
Mm-hmm.
seen them acknowledge that there's a pay discrepancy, and I've heard them talk about what they do as managers. You know, we do ask for higher pay. We do build new positions with compensation. But it's like we talked about earlier, is that ask going to get me the radical change that I need to close that gap? And the answer is no. And Isham's current position in their FAQ about passing the laws to their body is, shh, do not talk about salary with your industry leaders, with your legislators, because if you start having that conversation with them, that will dramatically make it more difficult for us to pass these laws. And that is their official position. So what I would like to see is for that official position to change. And I would add on to what you said and say, not only do I need to hear them have a public conversation about our pay and wage disparity, I also need them to talk about our resource disparity, our race and bias and injustice issues that we are facing, our lack of centralized education, and our lack of infrastructure, because it is truly an American infrastructure problem. We all need hospitals to run well. Every single one of us. There should be no one walking into a facility because their zip code is in a low wage or low poverty area that's getting subpar care, or the flip side, having people in communities that think because they're going to very well off hospitals that they're safe. I got news for you. You're not. I ain't been in one yet that you were. So, and I don't care if you're the president, I don't care who you are. You're not getting complete safe care. And as long as SPD is kept and held down in the basement, you never will. You will continue to get infections. You will continue to lose your limbs, and you will continue to lose your lives.
Very well said. And before we continue, because I think we still have a lot to probably talk about, at least for another 15 minutes or so. But I'm just want to take this opportunity to we have for CSS Central Sterilization Solutions, we have our educational specialist that spoke a little bit about what COVID the kind of effect it had, and in showcasing sterile processing in some light. So we'll be right back, folks. This is not going to take very long. We'll be right back.
The job market right now is, I feel, much better than it was even when I went in. As the result of the COVID pandemic that we've had, Our profession has been even under more spotlight and given even more of an opportunity. We're infection control, we're infection preventionists, and breaking the chain of infection and destroying viruses is our job, and it's what we're trained to do as professionals. That field is going to keep growing and growing. The sterile processing field is a great way to come into the hospital setting. Again, you're coming right into the operating room.
So we're back, and I want to thank Alessandra for being on the show with us. It's been a true pleasure being able to talk to you, and I'm not ending the show unless you have to go. But thank you for coming on, and we'll continue on with our topic here. So I wanted to give my 2 cents. I kind of, maybe I'm wishy-washy, but Pernell, I agree with you and I disagree with you. And same with Alessandra, I agree with you and I disagree with you. But, but I'm not going to go into too much detail on that. But what I did want to talk about was, since sometimes the conversation cannot necessarily be from Isham's point of view, and I understand their point of view right now, as they're trying to push legislation, they don't want to talk about salary. And the reason being is because they know that if they do so, then the bill that they're proposing and trying to get put into law is going to be dead on arrival. And that's why they're going away from it. So but I believe that there are things that technicians can do to still help out their situation as far as income goes. And I see this in California. We have a disparity in the fact that, if you have a little bit of experience and you're certified, you can go work for registry. And I think hospitals are starting to wake up a little bit, at least here in California, showing that, wait a minute, we're having a hard time hiring individuals. And that's because individuals that used to work for them are like, to hell with this. I'm not going to get paid $16 an hour, $18 an hour when I can go to a registry. And granted, but I'm young. I don't need benefits. So I'll go work for $25 an hour so I can pay my rent and stuff. And I think that's, so what are some of the things that we can do or tell our audience as far as how we can put themselves in a better light to be able to work on being able to build their career so that they can make more money? Either one of you.
So it's tough because it's going to depend on where you are, how you navigate this. California, I think, is unique, and also somewhat in Massachusetts, but California especially has many layers to employment within the central processing industry. So you can get your certification from a school, and you can go straight into working for registry. You're going to be probably one of the lower paid technicians of anybody that's working. But that's going to allow you to get a job in a facility with little to no experience. You're very lucky if you find schools that have guaranteed externships. And I would highly encourage people, when you are calling around and you're asking information about these schools, ask them and get in writing that they have a guaranteed externship and what the time frame for you to receive that is going to be. Because I do often see in California, technicians pay a lot of money for certification classes, and then they're never able to go on site to get their hours, and they just end up stuck in a cycle of paying and repaying for this test. Another thing I would say is, once you do get that registry experience, do not have any loyalty to these facilities. I know a lot of people will disagree with me about that, because as managers, we want longevity. We do not want staff turnover. However, Harry asked, as the individual, how do you maximize your dollar? You're going to maximize that by moving around. So some of my leaders have told me no more than 1 to 3 years at a particular facility, simply because whatever you were making as a base salary at the last place, you're able to, in negotiations, ask for a little more money at the next place, because we really, really want to get you. So that's another way. And then the last way is, I would say, by either doing some local travel. so that you can maximize your dollar. And a lot of times those companies will reimburse for travel like gas or for flights or things like that, or to consider being a travel tech altogether. I am seeing that more and more in the industry, that families are splitting up to travel in order to maximize their dollar. So those are some of the things that you can do. And then I do want to just lastly say, SPD is no longer a young man's game. We are a very intergenerational department. So we have new people that are coming in that are grandmothers. We have a lot of young people that are single parents, and we're highly educated. I myself don't have a bachelor's degree, but a lot of my staff have bachelor's degrees and master's degrees, and they could be doing something else. They do this thing because they love it. So, we really do need to think about that as well, is how technical our work is becoming, and the fact that our work staff are families, and they're not just paying rent, they're paying mortgage, they're paying student loans, they're paying for daycares, they're paying for all this. So $18 an hour ain't gonna cut it.
That's true.
Agreed.
That is absolutely true.
If the question is, what can individual technicians do to impact their pay? Is that what the question is? I forget stuff.
Basically, yes. Yeah.
Some of my medicine just make me forget stuff. Well, I go back to organizing, and I go back to advocacy.
Absolutely.
Central service may not be a young man's game. We are in a generation. I mean, we see that in the students that we train. There's a grandma sitting next to a granddaughter, getting this certification together. But I think people need to understand that, this pay situation is not a sprint, it's more of a marathon. And lots of things have to happen in order for central services to receive the kind of credibility, and people need to take us more seriously. And like we've all talked about, it's because they don't know, we haven't hit that critical mass yet. So how do we get there? We got to get enough people to understand our plight, decision makers to understand our plight. So my focus is, in today's world, in the real world that we live in right now, how do you best impact that? I think it's through the organization. It's through the bottom line. Yeah. So as far as advocating and having a body that advocates for you, the whole you, not just the science and not just the education, although those things are critically important, they're all number one priorities. I don't think, in my mind, that there should be any reason for your professional organization to not advocate for better pay for people who are grossly underpaid.
Absolutely.
I think they're doing you a disservice
100%.
if that is not a priority. So 100%. I would say there is a way to change organizations. There is a way to leverage your power, but you have to organize. You have to join the organization, work from within. You're going to have folks on the outside like me who are always rattling cages and attempting to advocate in my own way. But you have to take, sort of a three-pronged approach here.
Oh, yes.
You got to be in the organization to make an impact.
Yeah.
The people who changed the bylaws got in there to do exactly that.
Absolutely.
And the organization is different, and it's better because some folks went in there with a plan. Yeah. Organized. There's a lot more people out there who feel like your pay should be better than there aren't.
Oh yeah.
And get in that organization because that's what you got right now. Or create one. But that's
create one. The true answer is create one. We, like you said, it is three-pronged. We do have to get in there. We do have to advocate, and people have done that. And hopefully we just saw a new batch of radicals come in, I pray. But we're about to find out if that's the case or not. But regardless, we are here. We are within this organization, and we want our pay, we want our resources, we want our equipment, we want our staffing ratios proper, and we want it now. And I don't think that there's any need for us to have a conversation anymore about marathons, because this has got to be a sprint. People are in harm's way the longer we lag in having this conversation. And so, yeah, we do need to organize. And I do, like, I've talked about this a lot when I came out with Des. I do hope that the Condré Institute becomes that. As an individual, I'm happy to consult and educate. I feel like that is our central purpose. But at the end of the day, like Pernell said, somebody has to stand up and advocate and say the hard thing that nobody else wants to say. And we have to have an umbrella where those defectors, if you will, can come under a professional organization and say, we do have the data to demonstrate to you that these machines are failing, that this water quality is poor, that the HVAC systems are in disarray, that IUSS is being underreported or underrecorded or misunderstood completely, that IFUs are passing through the 510K process that should never have even made it that far. So there's brokenness not only within the hospital itself, but within DPH, within the FDA, ARN, CMS, Joint Commission, and World Health Organization. Because even when you look at it from that perspective, and if you truly go, I mean, it's in the Isham book, if you guys go read it, it tells you that even though we have all these different bodies here at the base, when you get to the top, there's really only one organization that reports up to World Health Organization. And what you end up seeing is one voice, not the voice of many, not the voice of many scientists. So what I want to see in the future is folks like us taking knowledge like Corey Ofsted's last letter about cystoscopes and not allowing the FDA to get away with simply a warning letter. Where's the accountability for the fact that scopes have been on the industry wreaking havoc for years? And Corey Ofsted's information is not new. We've been reading those studies for years. So what's going on here? We know we're not doing post-surveillance of these cysto and these polyp cases. We know that there's a big conversation that needs to be had about CMS and reimbursements and how that's actually the driver of your care, or the fact that you see these NCIL patient safety goals like for surgery. Now, how long we've been doing surgery? The patient safety goals for 2021 still say, make sure you have the right patient in the right site. Seriously? Like, come on. That's every day.
It happens.
You know, what about a patient safety goal that ask about your SPDs, your employee satisfaction, when we know that that's a key driver for safety? What about a surveillance program that is tracking how much these BellyMed or Steris or getting the machines are breaking down? Mm-hmm. Like, where is any of that coming in? I remember having a conversation with the FDA, their little MedWatch program, and they were visiting sites to try to get them to report more, because that's voluntary, mind you, it's not required. And one of the things that they proudly told us, and these were nurses working for the FDA, they proudly told us that they were now tapping into facilities, work orders, so that they could trend for themselves what things were breaking down in the hospital. And I was like, oh, wow. Well, if you can do that, are you tapping into instrument tracking systems? And are you seeing how often we're repairing, this, that, and the other, or how often we're not removing, things like tape, or how often our machines are going down? And you know what they said? Because y'all know what they said.
Huh?
No, I didn't know anything about that. Now, how is there even that disconnect between the FDA MedWatch and the FDA 510K process? Because they had to go through them to get certified, but the watch group has no idea it even exists.
Yeah.
So we have to close those gaps. We just have to close those gaps.
And our plates are going to be full for a while because, there's a lot happening or not happening.
Not happening.
And I'm glad that there are folks like you out there who are passionate about these issues and are willing to step out there and to talk about them.
Oh, yes.
My approach is one
of those old school SPD techs that I never needed to go to the OR. I never needed to see the patient to understand that what I did impact them. And when you are standing in that operating room, that surgeon has to have 15, 20 some odd years of training. That nurse has another 4, 5, 6 years of experience, right. The scrub tech. And the only person whose science is going directly into your body is me. And some places I don't even have to be certified. So it's a no-brainer that we have a disconnect when it comes to patient safety.
Yeah, and no question. And that's why I'll go back to education. And when you advocate for a group because of pay or something important like that, you then have an opportunity to educate on some of these. Maybe you bullet point several of these issues. And here's why. Better pay, you could make an argument that you may get better candidates.
Yes.
But you certainly are going to get people's attention. So I go back to advocate and educate. People don't know. They don't know what the complexities are. They don't know all of the synergies that have to take place for everything to go well. And I think you've highlighted
maybe not.
So many
I mean, do we really want to sit here and still say that infection control doesn't understand what we do? Surgery, peri-op doesn't understand what we do? Senior leaders don't. I mean, are we really going to continue to have that conversation? Because yes, they do. They know what we do. And you know when they know what we do? When it don't go right, they come find us in that basement.
Yeah, and
I would argue that, because what are they going to ask you to do, right? You're going to come, you're going to have that data, and we got to have it, right? Because it has to be communicated to all sciences, right? So that has to happen. But what's going to happen when we really have this conversation at an industry level, at a facility level, at a legislative level, is we're going to get pushback. Because it's going to be, we're not adding more dollars and cents to this process. We're not going to dip into our profits. And so at some point, and also I just want to highlight, hospitals understand what it takes to keep good employees. They do not need to be educated about that. They know what it takes. They feed their surgeons. They do not pay for food. They give them lots of vacation. They get lots of PTO. They get lots of bonuses to come to the facilities. They get homes bought for them. They get new instruments. We get new equipment for them. So they know what it takes. So we're not going to play that game either. But what the surgeons do when they want something is they stop that bottom line, right? So what I would like to see SPD start to understand is not only are you going to have to organize, and you're going to have to get your data, and you're going to have to get your Excels and your PowerPoints and all that ready to go, but you're also going to have to decide what you're willing to put on the line for this, because at some point in this conversation, maybe this year, maybe 2 years, 5 years down the line, sterile processing is going to have to walk off the floor and allow for perioperative services to understand who the kingmaker truly is, SPD, and not ask for any more help, but demand it, because the money is there. The money is always there in emergency services. It's there. Whether it needs to come from a federal cooperation, a city cooperation, a corporate cooperation. Quite frankly, some of these industry leaders could throw some of the money back they've made off of SPD and help SPD cut some real deals, because we make money for everybody. I've been in situations where major companies have come from California with Excel spreadsheets that I've made, or groups that I've worked on have made, and are using it to make money out here on the East Coast. That's real. And that's tangible theft. Now, I can't, what is little old me going to do to go up against that mega monolith of a company? But that company eats off of everything that I do. And how dare we allow our organization to be so interconnected with them that we can't even have conversations about that? We're passing information back and forth with these reps like this is not business. And that's what it is. So when you say we want to get respected, we have to take our ball and go home.
Yeah, that's certainly
that this is not a game.
That's certainly one approach.
That is an approach.
Now, I would say as it relates to what hospitals know and not know,
they know.
I can only speak to some of the experiences that I've had, out there in the field, and you would think and you would hope that they would know, but I can't tell you how many infection control departments that
Oh,
I've been
yes.
into.
That you're training
that
on basic concepts of clean versus dirty ought to be embarrassed of themselves. The fact that they even block you, like, for instance, quite frankly, as educated as you are and with as much experience as you have in the field, you should be able to apply to run a perioperative department, apply to run a risk management department, an infection control department, because at the ground level, you have all the basic information you need, plus leadership in order to run those departments. And we do it all the time to SPD. We bring RNs in, we bring CSTs in, and nobody ever bats an eye. But if SPD wants to go out into the other healthcare departments and be geniuses, the answer is unequivocally no. And they do not care if you have a business management or a public health degree or any of the other requirements that your partners have to have. Why is that? Why are we constantly having to whisper our science to our allies rather than having our allies simply stand back and put us in the proper position that we belong in?
Well, good question is why. What I'm saying is, with the professional organization that's in place, if you want to see those kinds of changes happen, there's already an infrastructure. There's already the organization that has been there for some time. I'm talking about ISHM. I would say if you want an organization that would advocate and talk about these issues and have some credibility, if you want those things to be a priority, then I think there's a way to get that done.
Yeah.
I think there's a way to start that conversation. It's not going to happen.
And I think one way that we can do that is how we currently do that, right? We have a lot of industry leaders that write papers, that write letters, that publish within, ISHM's organization or within like healthcare purchasing news. So maybe that's one way we can start. Obviously the podcast as well. All of you guys are having these conversations, Knowledge and Nonsense, The Process. Celindra Bearfield, was leading the pack with a lot of this stuff too. So for us, that groundswell has started. And maybe, like you said, we just use those established conduits to start seeping this information in through the cracks that, hey, we're down here and we need help and we need it now.
Well, it starts with the grassroots. There's never been an organization that has advocated for real and profound change that didn't come from the troops on the ground. And so I think there's an opportunity to properly organize people.
Absolutely.
And if folks are properly organized and they understand to leverage or how to leverage that organization, you'll see a lot of change happen. We could do a 2-hour show about the problems that exist, but there has to be a jump off point. There has to be a starting point. So if we're going to chop down this tree, what's the first swing? And so I would put out there that utilizing the existing structure that's in place and changing it to advocate for what you believe in. And so how do you do that? Well, you get your numbers up. If people are really interested in that kind of change, we can talk about it and have the same conversation we're having right now 2 years from now.
Absolutely.
Where does it start? Right? That's what I'm interested in.
And because we know that, because we've been talking about this in break rooms our whole careers, right? Some of us 30 years, 50 years, 13 years, 3 years.
Harry's case, 65 years.
Right? Like we have been doing that. So absolutely, I 100% agree.
I
organize tangibly, and what are going to be those baby steps that we take towards advocacy and education that also coincides with restorative justice and meaningful change?
Absolutely. And we're going to get you on board to do a full hour on those broader societal impacts for sure. I want to commend you again, Alessandra, and I've seen you around. I haven't met you personally, but the first time I heard you on Dee's podcast, I texted Harry that same night and I asked him, hey, do you know Alessandra? He was like, well, I don't even remember what you told me. What did you tell me, Harry?
I said I'm aware of her. I've seen her on the shows.
Right. She's been around.
Yeah. So, right. I saw all the Oakland pictures and all that good stuff.
Yes.
A very nice trip. I lost my train of thought. I don't remember where I was going, Harry. Sorry.
That's okay.
It's
You know,
definitely
and
been
let me,
a pleasure for me to get to know everybody because I've really been attacking it from an individual facility level and really had my head buried in the sand, thinking that I was having an individual experience, and we're not. And COVID helped me understand that when I got to move, you know, out from California all the way to Massachusetts and coming from the Midwest, I was able to see that actually, no, this truly is a systemic problem.
Absolutely.
And COVID just dwarfs the numbers. Again, I just want to keep repeating that it dwarfs the numbers when we start talking about surgical site infections, patient deaths due to infections. It's not being surveyed well. And even with COVID, like Harry was saying, it outlined that SPD is in trouble. Like even with mass reprocessing, you know, we saw people dipping masks in bleach. We saw people spraying them down with cavi wipes, and or even the fact of should they have ever been reprocessed in the first place. I don't know that we can answer that right now, but I know
right. There was a lot of panicking going on.
I know as SPD techs, those IFUs always said, "Don't touch it without gloves." So you know, we really do have to dig deeply.
Had we had the kind of professional organization, and I'm not knocking anyone. I know Isham did put out some stuff, but largely they put out what other people put out, 3M, and so someone would have stepped out, or we would have put out a consultant that was an absolute professional in that area. Right, to handle it. There it is.
Where were we? It was when we had that original conversation with Des, and I'm gonna hop off my soapbox. When we had that original conversation and I got invited to speak, the conversation that I was having with Cylindra was, where was SPD? And when the national conversation popped off about COVID and what we were gonna do and when we were gonna do it, we saw nursing on the news. We saw Department of Health on the news. We saw Fauci on the news. We saw the general surgeon on the news. We infection preventionists. We never saw a sterile processing leader to come out on a Fox or a CNN or quite frankly, even some of these White House briefings to say, this is how you clean things and this is how you don't. And here's the science behind that. What did we find? We found that most Americans don't even understand contact times. Now, SPD could have told you that the general public doesn't understand contact times, but no other facility or other organization will be able to tell you that truly and unequivocally, because they're going to tell you that from the perspective of, I understand that, but I also put measures in place to fix it. Then that's the disconnect, is because no one understands what we do, they don't put measures in place to fix it. And you end up with really harmful, what we're going to find is very down the line, harmful impact of nurses that got slapped on the face with hydrogen peroxide for months on end. And when we have established science that you can't even touch that with your bare hands. So if you don't have someone like myself that's willing to risk it all, if you will, to say the thing that no one wants to hear, then it goes unheard and people get hurt. And that's the bottom line. And that's what I want SPD to understand as an industry, is that as long as we keep having this conversation as internal dialogue and we are not making demands of our partners to respect our science, we get hurt, our patients get hurt, our communities get hurt. So we have to stop playing around and trying to do this kind of, I don't want nobody to rock the boat, and start advocating with the data that we have.
Yeah, well, nobody else is going to do it for us.
Nobody's going to do that.
Yeah, and if it doesn't come out of the community, and again, professional organizations are different from industry to industry. A professional organization, I believe, should be what the vast majority of the members want it to be.
Yes.
And again, look at the numbers, look at the voting numbers, and look at the number of sterile processing professionals that are out there.
Come on, look at the way the organization is set up. The only way you can even get to the board is if you've had years and years of experience and you've got lots of education under your belt. When the vast majority of the members are CRCSTs, or maybe they have bachelor's degrees, and they're significantly underpaid. So we couldn't possibly have an organization that is advocating for that group if that group isn't even reflected on the board. You should be able to have at least a mix of frontline staff, of management level, of director level, or however you want to break that up. But the vast majority of the board should look like it's voting members. And that might be one quick way you get your members to vote.
Exactly. How does that happen? How does that happen? The
should.
vast majority of sterile processing professionals out there are not members of ISHM.
But what does that get you? I mean, I guess that's where
what I'm saying is
connect this, because what does that get you? And do I want to take all these people that are not currently within ISHM and funnel them into an organization that has not historically done its fair share?
Again, how do you get that change done that you want to get it done?
I think you create.
I think on one hand,
all together. That's what I think. I think you create a new entity that acknowledges and respects the CRCST and the CBSPD, because I think once you have one, you should not have to pay to get the other one. You know, that's just our industry right now. It shouldn't be like that. We shouldn't be blocking people into that, or even socializing that, because I have been to some facilities that think, you know, they're not going to accept CBSPD over a CRCST, and that's ridiculous. But I think there needs to be a new organization that is founded with the understanding that we will advocate for the science, not just educate, which is what ISHM's real purpose and you know, beginning really was about. And it's necessary and needed and needs to stay there. But I think we do need a separate entity that is fully founded on the acts of advocacy, because until SPD as an industry acknowledges all non-certified, all CERs, all departments that are doing our work that should not be doing our work, I'm not even gonna go too deep into that. But until we get that group together that takes that education and that science from this body and then puts together that neutral body that can advocate, because they're not taking money from, you know, the major companies. They're not taking money from the FDA. You know, they're more focused on, as you said, grassroots funding and focus, because only a neutral party is going to stay committed to the goal of patient safety over all.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, you know, organizations have their reasons that they'll tell you are their reasons for not wanting you to do certain things. And again, I'm not bad mouthing anybody here. I'm just saying,
because I have all my certs.
Right. If you are interested in change, how do you get that change done? Nobody's going to do it for you. You got to be involved. And again, an organization like you mentioned, there's been discussion about that. Harry and I have talked about that. You want to jump in on that, H?
Well, actually, just to reiterate what you said, probably about a half hour ago, is, you know, getting involved. Get involved locally. You know, all of you that have your CRCST, you're certified through ISHM. You're not necessarily a member, because ISHM now has a thing where you can just renew your certification and not necessarily be a member.
And not pay the extra.
I think, you know, for the extra $10, it was worth it.
What are you getting for it? What are you getting for it, right?
Come on. Sorry.
You get to vote. I mean, that you know, well, for us, Pernell, for us is a little bit different, because we operate a school, and so we get the discounts. We're purchasing tons of books, you know, at least 100 or 200 books a year, because we're teaching and stuff. And so it's really nice to have that discount. So it's worth the $10 as far as I'm concerned. But locally, we need, first of all, every state, anybody listening, if you are in a state and you don't have a local chapter, then I suggest that you get a small group of people. It doesn't have to be 100 people. It doesn't have to be a couple hundred or whatever. I mean, if you only got 20 people, start your association. Start holding educational, you know, services in your state. Number one, then make part of your platform the education of not just the technicians, but to invite, let's say, leadership to invite vendors, going back to how are we going to do it? How are we going to get the word out? How are we going to, be able to advocate for us, our technicians? I think one of the things we need to do because Alessandra, you talked about the vendors, making money. They definitely make money off of us.
Oh, yeah.
So I think they need to kick in.
Oh,
And
yeah.
I challenge every single vendor company out there, Steris, BellyMed, Gettinga, and 3M, and all the other Healthmark, you name it. Not just, and I know a lot of them do educational offerings, but you know what?
Well, especially along those lines, I want to highlight Healthmark, because Healthmark actually has a program now where if the facility spends money with them, Healthmark gives them points back that they can use to buy books or to buy certification exams or to send folks to Isham. And I'm not seeing a lot of people do that. I see scholarships here and there, but I don't see anyone saying dollar for dollar, I'm going to reinvest into you.
I think that's
right. And I think that's what they need to do. They need to, and one of the ways they can do that is that not just, hey, don't just come to California because California has a strong association and it has a lot of technicians and you're making a lot of money off of California.
Yes.
I'm sorry. I challenge you all to be involved in every single state. Yeah.
Go to the Black and brown cities, go out to the rural areas, because we're doing surgery too. And quite frankly, are in more dire need of education than the cities, right? Than the academic facilities that are getting government funding. Go to the rural areas. And I also challenge them, stop making it out like your education is some gift from God. You need to provide it. So give it, don't make it, tie it up in contracts for OEMs and all that crap. That is not fair to the public. You need to provide, and you need to make more robust education departments. You shouldn't be a multi-billionaire company with 5 or 6 people as your educators. That's ridiculous. Stop it.
Small budget for the education department.
I mean, come on.
Which, by the way, just wanted to put it out there. We Central Sterilization Solutions via through CSS Nation and all that. Our plan is we've already started the works for February in Long Beach to have a local seminar, and as opposed to organizations like CCSA, where they normally go to Long Beach and they charge their members. If you're a member, you get charged $50. If you're not a member, you're charged $75 because then you're made a member at that time. So what we're planning on doing is having a 100% seminar. So hopefully the COVID restrictions will be released.
Did you say 100% free?
100% free for attendees.
Yes.
Is the plan, so that you can come in and get educated. And we've already got lined up past presidents, David Jagrossi, Damian Berg are the 2 top speakers. We have Alison Sonstilia, hopefully I pronounced her name right. And then we have the unknown speaker, who's not as widely recognized or unknown, but does speak. This guy, who's bald head and has 2 thumbs and can speak. This guy. So those will be the 4 speakers. But we are going to have a vendor show as well. So typically we have in that location, I've held through the association, I've held seminars there, and we've had anywhere from like 30 to 40 vendors there. So we're planning, the whole thing is going to be paid for either by vendors. And if the vendors don't show up, that's fine. CSS Nation, Central Sterilization Solutions will pay for it. We'll pay for it. But my guarantee is that the attendees will not have to pay. And my hope is that we'll also be broadcasting it live.
Yes.
We will be putting it out there. So not only anybody in California can attend, up to I think 150 is the max, but then the rest of it will be live streaming it as well.
Nice.
All right. And it will be Isham approved, CBSBD approved. So you'll be able to get your points.
I think that's beautiful. And I think that is the work that needs to be done. And Harry, as just someone that you have invited onto the show, I would just challenge you. I think the only piece that you are missing is having a wider variety in your panel. I would like to see, I think you've got the intergenerational portion there. I think you've got the leadership portion there. I'd like to see somebody more front line. And I'd like to see someone of color on that panel, just to give that perspective of SPD, because I think until we get all perspectives at the table, we're not having a full conversation about what's happening within our industry. So beautiful work. Just taking the charge to put something like that together that is free and that is central about education that anybody can access.
Yeah,
right. Okay.
I think I'm really looking forward to that in February. And, I think, concerning the broader issues that impact all of us, again, I've sort of staked out areas that, look, with all of the issues that impact the world here, abroad, and those that impact sterile processing specifically. I mean, we've probably been on for what, 2 hours?
Almost.
Hour and
Again,
45
and
minutes and 20 seconds.
And we haven't listed nearly all of the issues.
Right.
So, I think what we've done with this particular podcast is we've cut out a little piece of what, we would like to focus on as it relates to checking in with managers every now and then to see how they're doing, to see what's happening with them,
Yes.
to bringing on vendors to talk about their new products that they're coming out with, to leaders in the industry. We had the current Isham president on a couple months ago.
President-elect, yes, Marjorie.
President-elect a couple months ago. And we hit on some of the issues that we wanted to hit on. God knows we didn't have time to hit on everything.
Yeah,
so
we're going
I
to be
think,
bringing her back on.
Oh, definitely. I definitely think that carving out your niche, especially in this online space, is so critically important.
Oh,
and there's a lot of room for a lot of discussion. And I would just like to encourage everybody who's out there doing this, being in the arena, to continue doing what you're doing and to continue advocating for, the concerns that you believe should be, appropriately prioritized.
Absolutely.
There's a lot of wonderful people out there doing really good work. Alessandra, you're among them. And I just, again, being in the arena, attempting to make a difference is what's key here for me. Yeah.
Absolutely. Agreed.
Well, Alessandra, thank you so much for coming on and joining us. We definitely want to have you back again so that we can, I think you're fiery,
I'm a little spicy.
I like it. I sat back and I kept quiet because I'm like, you go, girl. You get them. So we definitely want to invite you back.
Thank you. I appreciate you guys having me on today, and I would absolutely love to come back. I'm super excited about this event in Florida. I want to see if I can get myself on down there too. I think what Pernell said, we all have to start doing that individual work. And I'll say this out to all the SPD techs that are out there, whether you're certified or not, stand on your science. You are the subject matter expert of your area. So if you're not aware of how you can advocate for yourself through the channels currently, reach out to us. You guys can find me on Facebook at Condra Institute. I'm happy to help you navigate the real world challenges of human resources and of putting together packages for compensation and things like that. And then I hope to just continue doing what I'm doing, which is standing up and being a voice on behalf of our science, to make sure that all of us are safe, because I want to be able to go into a hospital and have surgery and know that I don't have to worry about anything. And it doesn't matter where I went. It doesn't matter what hospital it is. I get to go in there and be my most vulnerable self, asleep and all else, and I'm going to come out okay. So if anything I can do to educate and help with that, that's what I'm here for.
And remember, folks, that is the Condrey Institute of SPD that Alessandra is talking about. And so I have it up on the screen. Hopefully I spelled everything right. I didn't do a
Yes.
quick spell check before I posted
Thank
it.
you very much.
All right. So
Thank you
again,
so much.
Alessandra, thank you so much
You're welcome.
for coming on to the show.
You guys are
Do it
great.
again soon.
Right? Keep up the great work, everyone.
All right. You take care.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Well, you know
Awesome.
what? That I think was is another great show. I want to thank all the viewers, especially Denard. The Sterile MD is what he likes to go by.
Mic drop, he said.
And by the way, if he sees this part, he'll know what I'm talking about. Yes, we're good. I've just been real super busy and haven't been able to respond. I've been traveling around the United States, doing work here and there. Was in Virginia, was in Washington, was in Oregon, and
Texas.
stuff. So definitely, D, we're good. I want to thank Selva and let's say Ingrid and all of the other Facebook users, YouTube users that posted. Remember, this was a live show, so we will be converting this over to our podcast. Probably we'll split it up because it's got almost 2 hours, and we'll definitely want to make sure that we'll break it down to about probably half-hour segments that we'll release over the next week. Because I don't know that anybody, unless you're driving on the freeway and you're stuck in traffic, will you have time to listen to the whole show in your ear and stuff. So, but thank you, everybody. And remind you all that you can find us on YouTube. Our channel is Central Sterilization Solutions. Again, if you like the show, give us a thumbs up, smash the like button. Also subscribe and hit the notification bell to be notified when we post again. Also, those that watch to us through CSS Nation or anywhere else on Facebook, and this will be posted on LinkedIn as well. And we will, again, it's up on the podcast. We put it up on Anchor, and Anchor distributes it to iPodcasts, the Google Podcast, the let's see, what else? Spotify, and all the other Stitcher, and all the other platforms. By the way, before we say goodbye, Pernell, I have one question for you.
Just one?
Just one.
Just one.
Do you have anything
Okay.
anything to say?
Yes, of course I do. We'll be back.